Siemanko YouTube, dzień dobry. Słuchajcie, Warcraft 3 lata swojej świetności ma już dawno niestety za sobą. Ale co gdyby tak wprowadzić parę, a mianowicie dokładnie 17 zmian, które uczyniłyby tę grę jeszcze lepszą i bardziej przystępną dla na przykład nowych graczy? Z taką inicjatywą właśnie przychodzi Grubby, czyli najlepszy gracz europejski w Warcrafta 3. Do dzisiaj sobie w niego zagrywa na bardzo wysokim poziomie i tworzy z tego w dalszym ciągu fajny content. Mamy Blizzard 17 Quality of Life Improvements to Flat Players into Warcraft 3. Czy to się spełni? Raczej nie, ale zobaczmy z czym. Ja sam grałem w Warcrafta 3 bardzo dużo czasu, uczyłem się na jego powtórka, grałem tam profesjonalnie w latach 2005-2006, ale to jest przeszłość. Zobaczmy, co tutaj ma do powiedzenia.
And I'm in my late 50s. My long life has given me lots of time to think about Warcraft.
Nie ma 50 jak coś. To jest mniej więcej mój rocznik 8.7, może 8.8 albo 8.6.
And Reforged and some improvements that could be made to the game that we all know and love. In the year 2020, Blizzard released their new client Reforged, where everybody plays Warcraft 3 on right now.
Reforged jest najgorszym remake'iem, jakikolwiek został stworzony na tej planecie zwanej Ziemią, nie? Nie ma gorszego remake'u niż Reforged.
Now, whether you use the old graphics or the new graphics. A Reign of Chaos CD key on your Battle.net account allows you to play Reforged with the old graphics, and if you have a Reforged copy, you could choose either one. Most serious players choose to use the old graphics.
No, zdradzę wam szczegół do czego, bo na nowej grafice nie jesteście w stanie odróżnić jednostek waszych od przeciwnika, nawet jak gracie innymi rasami. Na początku, jak tych jednostek jest mało, no to tak, budynki rzeczywiście wyglądają inaczej, ale jak już wasza armia przeciwnika się zaczną pizgać, no to powodzenia, jeżeli będziecie w stanie powiedzieć, która jest która.
Besides the new graphics that were brought with Reforged, which most people don't like, Reforged still brought a whole slew of improvements and bugs, which is part of the reason the reviews were so deservedly scathing at the time. But Warcraft has had many improvements as of recently. We've had some cool content, some cool collaborations and show matches, like the Tyler 1 arc, and the soda popping, learning of Warcraft 3, and so...
A to wszystko, te wszystkie usprawnienia, to społeczność robi. Nie Blizzard. Oni zatrudnili sobie jakieś tam studio drugie, żeby zrobiło remake'a spieprzyli, nie zrobili tak jak zapowiadali, że zrobią. No jest jak jest, no.
I feel like it's a good time to do a little letter to Blizzard of what I think are some easy wins when it comes to offering some extra quality of life to new players and to the existing player base. Things that I think, perhaps naively or perhaps correctly, are relatively light on development resources, but could be a massive improvement in quality of life for new players and experienced players alike. Here's my list of 17.
Jedyne co Blizzard robi aktualnie, znaczy to nawet nie wiem, czy to do końca Blizzard, to patche wypuszczają. Powiedzmy, że regularnie, balans patche, ale to nie są dobre balans patche, bo nie słuchają tych ludzi, których trzeba, tylko tych, co kastują gry turniejowe.
If I don't think of any more, quality of life changes that I think could be swell. Number 1, Reforged brought lightning fast loading when you queue up for a versus game on ladder and as you queue into the game. The loading is so fast that you can't even see what race you're playing against oftentimes.
To prawda. Nie możecie zobaczyć, jaką rasą gra przeciwnik, w sensie macie na to bardzo mało czasu, jeżeli w dzisiejszych czasach większość ma 2 monitory, jeżeli robicie w międzyczasie, jak wam gry szuka coś na drugim monitorze, usłyszycie dźwięk, że gra jest, od razu się odwrócicie, ale to już może być za późno, nie będziecie widzieli, na jaką rasę gracie i wtedy możecie tylko się zapytać i liczyć na to, że przeciwnik was nie okłamie, bo w grze nie ma guzika, który by pokazywał, na kogo gracie, w sensie na jaką rasą gra wasz przeciwnik.
And unlike in StarCraft 2, there is no way to open a menu to see what race your opponent is. W3 Champions, which is a third-party server where you can also play Warcraft 3 via with a legal copy of Reforged, fixed this by allowing you to type -game and it will show the races of every player in the game, provided that the race was known at load up. It would of course not reveal a random player's race, as that is supposed to be a secret. I feel like Warcraft 3 could do it like how it is in StarCraft 2, where if you click on the Allied menu in the top right, you can see the opponent's race and everyone else's that is not you Of course, you can see
Kamera
your own
zasłoniła
race by
chyba,
looking at your
ale
own
tam było
base. I
napisane
think this
rzeczywiście,
would
jaką
be
rasą
nice.
gra.
Additionally,
Nikt
they could
przeciwnika
make the loading
i
time
rasa.
artificially a bit longer than half a second. I mean, it sure is impressive to load that fast and everything, but I still feel like it's a good mixture between
Nie no, kurde, niech już się ładuje tak szybko, tylko rzeczywiście niech dorobią, że bo tam możecie sobie wejść, wiecie, w czat na przykład, nie? W Warcrafcie i co zostało napisane, niech tam będzie pokazane, jaką rasą gra przeciwnik. No.
speed
Tam
and
każdy grać
quality
w
of
meczu.
life. If the loading time would be set at a minimum
Oczywiście,
of
jeśli
2
random, to niech
seconds,
będzie random.
just
No.
so you can kind of catch your bearings. Next up, another feature that W3 Champions already reprises, but I feel like should be part of the base game, is having a number over the gold mine with the available amount of workers that can go into the gold mine, in addition to the current number of workers in the gold mine, so that you know whether you fully
Okej, rzeczywiście na W3 Champions, czyli na tym launcherze zrobionym przez społeczność i osobnym laderze, jest takie coś. Ja na to tak z uwagi nie zwracam, bo wiecie, no ja w to przegrałem tysiące godzin po prostu swego czasu i pamięć mięśniowa jest już wyrobiona, że zawsze się na to zerknie, czy jest akurat 5, czy jest 4. Ale tak, to prawda, w dzisiejszych czasach można by nawet, by to było w sumie, powiedziałbym, że to jest takie wymagane, że było pokazane, ile danych jednostek pobiera dany surowiec. Niech będzie doskonałym przykładem Age of Mythology Retold, który ma w środę oficjalną premierę dla wszystkich. Early Access miał tam w zeszłą środę. Tam każdy jeden surowiec, macie ich 4, pokazuje wam, ile robotników dany surowiec wydobywa, no nie? I tutaj też mogę, tutaj masz tylko złoto i drewno, ale no to są tylko pokazanie dosłownie gdzieś nawet pod goldem czy obok golda ilość workerów, które wydobywa. No i wszystko.
maxed out your mining in the gold mine yet. It would be shown as 5 out of 5, perhaps in green or without a color change, or 4 out of 5 if you haven't fully saturated the mine yet. Here's one that W3 Champions doesn't have yet, but I feel like would be a really good idea. It is actually really untransparent which creeps are going to be dropping the items. And many viewers in Warcraft 3 already make fun of all the pro gamers that are forgetting tomes of intelligence, tomes of agility, etc. because pros are so busy and zooming through the map that they're already looking away and perhaps they forgot which exact creep is the one that's going to be dropping a tome.
Ja oczywiście będę to mówił z mojego własnego doświadczenia, z mojej własnej perspektywy, ale jakkolwiek zgadzam się, żeby było pokazana ilość robotników wydobywająca dany surowiec, tak nie podoba mi się do końca oznaczanie, które klipy na danym kampie mają itemy, bo to wiecie, to już jest element taki, że czegoś musicie się nauczyć, coś zapamiętać. Okej, ten klip na tym kampie ma item. Ja o tym wiem, bo nie wiem, bardziej się do tego przykładałem, czy trenowałem, czy lepiej zapamiętałem. No najprawdopodobniej lepiej zapamiętałem, bo się przykładałem bardziej. Ale ja to wiem, a mój przeciwnik na przykład nie i bije innego klipa, a ja mu robię wtedy clipjacka, czyli wjeżdżam, znajduję go i atakuję, jak on robi tego kampa, nie? Żeby też nie było tak zbyt uproszczone wszystko.
And they're not how they used to be back when. So my idea was, if you could just show a subtle book icon either over the HP bar, on top of the HP bar, or over the creep that is going to be carrying a tome of intelligence or the equivalent item drop,
nigdy nie
that
było
could
to
be quite
opisane.
nice. This would allow all the players that don't have perfect memory about which creeps are going to be dropping which item to see which one is going to be dropping a tome, and then you would have a treasure chest icon in the same place over any creeps that will be dropping a permanent item, such as a wand of illusions,
Nie podoba
a
mi się
claws of
to.
attack, a ring of
Nie
regeneration.
chciałbym,
You
żeby
don't
coś
know
takiego było
obviously what
wprowadzone.
it is going to be, though that is a discussion for another time. Should you be able to know what an item is going to be before it drops? Debatable. I don't know if I like it, but at least it can be discussed. But at least the
To
fact
też
that
nie.
knowing that it's the ogre mage, not the troll priest or the troll warlord, that has the creep at this camp would be a nice quality of life feature for players that don't live, eat, and breathe Warcraft 3 every day. It's not going to make any difference at the top level, which is my favorite type of change and quality of life improvement, because it literally helps bring up the newbies of the game a bit with more quality of life improvement without affecting the balance at all at the high level. It's literally a win-win, except for, of course, the development time required to design that and implement it into the game. But I think it'd be lovely. The fourth option is one where I wasn't sure whether it was going to be a good idea 6 years back when I was brainstorming about it, but now that W3 Champions has had it, I feel like it's so useful to learn the game and to teach the game to people having an in-game clock
O,
that
tak.
pretty much just shows the amount of
Jezu.
seconds and minutes that has
Bez
passed
kitu,
since the
nie?
start of the game.
Wiecie, w Warcraftie trójcy macie podział na dzień i noc. I teraz w nocy klipy na kampach śpią, czyli możecie sobie podejść do sklepu, kupić jakiś item. Jeżeli te klipy rzeczywiście śpią, bo undeady nie śpią i mogą was zaatakować. Elfy mają bonusy, mogą się chować w cieniu, albo jak znajdziecie płaszcz, taki item, to wasz bohater może się schować w cieniu, chociaż to i tak zmienili, teraz można tego używać nawet w dzień, to już tam whatever. Ale i niektóre itemy są dostępne do określonej godziny w goblińskim sklepie, nie? No i za każdym razem musieliście najeżdżać kursorem na ten zegar, który tutaj pod moją kamerą widzicie i wtedy mieliście pokazany czas, znaczy godzinę, która jest aktualnie. No to taki timer, dodanie czegoś takiego, myślę, że to jest bardzo mało roboty. Jeszcze dla takiego studia jak Blizzard.
And then when you play on Battle.net again or custom games, you're not going to have that anymore, and it's quite a shame. You can make it a toggle where it does or doesn't show, and of course, while a real-time clock isn't as charming as the sun-night dial, translating every hour of past game time by the sun-night dial of Warcraft 3 at the middle top of the screen, remembering that 1 hour passed in game is equal to 20 seconds in the real world, and then doing your own maths with how many seconds has passed, definitely not as convenient. If I'm teaching a player, I would prefer to tell them that at exactly the 5-minute mark is when your Mountain King should be finishing, rather than...
A tak na marginesie ten timer cały w tym na W3 Champions też powstał stosunkowo niedawno, nie wiem ile, z pół roku temu może? Wcześniej też go nie było.
Saying, well, look to my coming at the third morrow of the, you know, at 7 a.m. on the third day, and that's where the Mountain King, or that's where the Archmage is going to be coming out. So it's just a much easier number to translate. You would of course still keep the day-night cycle, but just a little clock, maybe where W3 Champions has it or somewhere else. When I'm loading the leaderboard to see where I'm ranking in the world right now, as I've been trying to get rank 1, for some reason it automatically sorts by the race that I'm queuing up as. This is
Leaderboard i w ogóle ladder na Battle.necie w Warcraftie 3 to jest jakiś nieśmieszny nawet kurwa żart. Powiem wam tak. Blizzard powiedział, że 2 miesiące po premierze Warcrafta 3 Reforged, czyli w 2020 roku, wypuści ladder, matchmaking i w ogóle wszystkie takie piękne rzeczy dla ludzi, którzy chcą sobie porywalizować, no nie? I nie uwierzycie, ale oni tego nie wypuścili przez 2 lata. A w momencie, jak już wypuścili, to totalnie to zjebali i nie działa. Do dzisiaj możecie trafić na gościa, który ma 0,10, jak zaczynacie grać, a możecie nawet trafić na gościa, który ma 100-0. I to nieważne. Przegracie 10 gier z rzędu i tak możecie trafić na gościa, który jest po prostu, nie wiem, jakimś totalnym kotem, nie? I tu nie chodzi mi teraz o smurfa, który sobie siedzi na jakimś koncie i wbija statystyki od nowa, tylko naprawdę po prostu to nie działa.
always the case whichever race you queue up as. And while there's many more pressing problems that perhaps need to be resolved on the ladder, I'm focusing on one that's a pretty easy fix. Just have us start at the all races button so we can see how we rank in general, which is surely a lot more interesting. It's also more homogeneous looking to see all the different colors and all the different races, and it's surely more relevant to see where you rank. If you then want to see how you rank among the undead players, you can always go and queue up on that. But it just feels kind of weird that it always groups you just with the other races, as if that's somehow the most important metric. I know this may not like super affect everybody, but it's just something that's been rubbing me a little bit the wrong way. That I always need to go click on the all races, which generally is more interesting. Additionally, this screen could also focus specifically, to begin with, exactly on your own ranking. Notice how I'm not in the center of the screen. Of course, I want to be the center of focus, and any player is going to want to be the center of focus. And if they are not ranked, then it could at least show them their own number at the bottom always, like rank 347 or rank 11,700, which I think could be interesting rather than the way that it's being shown now, where you have to go find your own name. Also an option in W3 Champions, but not yet on Battle.net's version of Warcraft 3, being able to choose your own colors when you play ladder. Right now it's completely randomized, which can lead to some pretty poor color matching, such as I'm teal, they're blue. It's very similar looking, so I'm gonna press that button
Okej,
next to the
no ja i tak
minimap,
gram na ja
which goes
niebieski,
away from the
przeciwnik
crossed
czerwony
axis
i ork
and into
bić.
the allied colors, and I will always be blue and the opponent will always be red. That is a consistent way to play that gives me good recognizability and trains my muscle memory that blue is good and red is bad. But what if I wanted something else? I want that level of consistency, but I don't want to have specifically those colors because I'm so sick of them because I've been watching them for so long. I want to use the breadth and depth of color that Warcraft
Oni wprowadzili, słuchajcie, zwiększyli dwukrotnie ilość kolorów, nie? Z 12 do 24. I rzeczywiście no, to jak wy to sobie możecie wybierać, no to na laderze praktycznie, na laderze nie możecie. Są losowe, tak jak powiedział, i rzeczywiście mogliby coś takiego zaimplementować. Już nie sądzę, żeby to było jakoś dużo roboty, no ale ja w sumie nie znam się na tym.
3 has to offer, but I want to be able to choose which one it's going to be. So I'm always green, my opponent is always orange. W3 Champions allows this, but Warcraft 3 does not yet, and it'd be nice to have that functionality as
To jest
well.
niesamowite, ile
Shouldn't be too
społeczność
difficult to
rzeczy
be able to add
lepiej
an
jest w
option
stanie zrobić
in the
moderzy
option menu
w
in the
każdej
client of
grach niż
Warcraft 3,
kurde
where you can choose your
deweloper.
own color, choose allied's color, and choose the opponent's color. Also very friendly to colorblind players that may have some trouble distinguishing blue and red from each other. This one is a little bit more of a risky suggestion,
Mocny
but
argument
I
teraz
feel pretty
powiedział,
strongly
co?
about it, so I'm going to be including it anyway. Do you guys remember when chat in Warcraft 3 looked like this?
Oczywiście, że tak, Warcraft 3, Frozen Throne.pl i wszystko jasne, ale ten Battle.net, którą teraz tutaj pokazuję, ten stary Battle.net, już pomijam nostalgię teraz, która oddziałuje na moją głowę, ale to było tak dobre. Porównajcie sobie to, co widzicie na ekranie, do tego, co macie teraz na Warcraftie 3 na Battle.necie. No przecież to jest, z tamtego to nikt nie korzysta nawet. A tutaj to każdy dzień po szkole się zaczynało. W sensie wracam ze szkoły Warcraft 3 i wchodzimy na czat. I nawet ten czat był sobie odpalony, żeby tam z kimś popisać, coś pogadać. Nie było wtedy, wiecie, Discordów, TeamSpeaki, tam był jakiś Skype, już zaczynał być, ale tak, no to się wchodził tu i to był klimacik. I to wszystko tak pięknie działo. Ikony nawet, kont. Chciało się je zdobywać, były piękne i pięknie były zanimowane. Nie ten syf teraz, co jest teraz, no.
The moment you log into Battle.net, ready to start playing some games, you would have this large social system where you see everybody talking, and you could be in clans. The game
No, macie
focused
nawet
on the
zakładkę
social
tutaj,
system,
widzicie?
which feels like a
Plany.
fantastic play and move for developers because it increases the social feeling of being online. In StarCraft 2 nowadays, in Warcraft 3
A faktycznie w
nowadays, when
StarCraft
you
2
log
też to
in,
było
you feel like
spieprzone.
an island, not even a monolith, just an island. You're on a single uninhabited island. Social system is completely gone, and there's really no reason to ever be
Znaczy fajnie by było wrócić do takiego Battle.net, takiej wizualnej tej, ale powiedzmy sobie szczerze, że w dzisiejszych czasach już tak większość sieci na Discordzie, czy na jakichś innych tych, bo już raz, że komputery są szybsze, dwa, że że już mamy po 2 monitory, to znaczy większość ludzi ma 2 monitory, nie? Także to Discord na jednym, gra na drugim i na Discordzie macie wszystkich znajomych, wszystko to, także to uważam, że jest niepotrzebne, fajne, nostalgiczne, ale niepotrzebne.
inside Warcraft 3 the game when
Zresztą
you
tak
are
jak ten
not
czat, który jest teraz
actually
na
literally
Warcraftie 3.
playing. Look how lonely this feels. I get this spider to keep me company. This is always dead because it's small and it's an opt-in button.
Nikt tam nie
And
pisze,
nobody talks to her
że tego
anymore. If
jest
I want to
martwe.
know who is in this place, I have to scroll through it. And we are all segregated in many, many, many different channels. And it just feels so dead. Remember this? It was so much fun. Now, that's not to say there were
Ja
no
nie wiem, czy przez niego
weaknesses
też
with
trochę
this
nostalgia
system.
nie
I
przemawia
still
teraz,
remember
wiecie?
when I introduced my niece to StarCraft 1 for the first time. We logged into StarCraft 1, which had a similar system to this, also very beautiful and charming
A
look.
to tak samo Diablo 2, sobie porównajcie, jeżeli pamiętacie, jak wyglądał Battle.net Diablo 2 i jak wygląda Diablo 4 na przykład teraz. No z tamtego nikt nie korzysta i nikt nie pisze, powiedzmy sobie szczerze. Znaczy to też jest jakby kwestia no, czasów innych, no bo wtedy mówię, nie było Discorda i nie było innych komunikatorów, nie było też Messengera nawet głupiego, nie? Bo nie było Facebooka. Ale też ten Diablo 2 na przykład uważam, że był bardzo fajnie zrobiony.
And the first message instantly was an insult about someone else's mother, along with desirable actions that would be done with their mother. This was a little embarrassing because it showed our game from the wrong side. to her, but we managed to move past it, and she didn't mind too much or anything, and we ended up playing the game and having a great time. Why not have it be like W3 Champions, where by default you are not catapulted into the chat, but you could press one button to enter a large chat. Not the strange hidden, we are actually a little embarrassed of our social system and it's here at the bottom right because 90% of the screen must stay dead space. No, have it be big, but have it be opt-in. That's a middle way between probably the sensitivity that Blizzard has towards potential public profanity right when you log in, but still allowing people that do want to opt into the conversation to have this more classical look. It's such a big improvement. Trust me, we're going to love spending time so much more on Battle.net if we can spend time in such a chat and not the new Battle.net system.
Tego nie zrobią.
This is how it looks now.
Nawet
This next
nie widzę
change is
sensu
a little
osobiście,
bit
żeby oni to
about
poprawiali.
visibility and clarity. When you log into the Warcraft 3 client, you are greeted with this screen.
No.
There is a little bit of confusion, allow me to explain. When you look at this screen, it is pretty obvious. If I click on this, I go to collection. If I click on this, I go to local area network. Click on custom games and I go to custom games, presumably online, but you don't really know. It could be online or offline. Technically, this button doesn't tell
To
you.
prawda.
Versus probably means you're going to play
A teraz
against other
zdarzyło mi
players.
się źle
So
kliknąć
that
na
has
tym
to be
menu, jak
online.
chciałem wejść chyba w
Local
kampanię.
area network is not online, and collection is probably not online
Albo,
either.
albo nie,
So
w
we've got this is
customa na
online,
Battle.necie.
not online, don't know. This is online, this is single player. So we've got this whole mix of services for which we are online and which we're not online for. When we click on single player, we get another menu that also
That's so
says
custom
custom
games.
games in the exact same place. So if I look at that button in the middle,
Geniusz. Po prostu geniusz jakiś to projektował.
it's custom games. But is it online, offline? I don't know. Now, if you remember, I clicked on the single player button. But if you don't remember, then this doesn't tell you anything again. Is it online or is it offline? Custom campaign is probably offline because, you know, it's a single player campaign. Except, as a new player, I wouldn't know. Can I play the campaign with other players? A Warcraft player will tell you, no, you can't. Not unless you go into the custom games online. But a new player wouldn't know. Campaign, custom campaign, multiplayer or not? I don't know. View replay. Could be online, could be offline. Don't know. Load save game. Could be online, could be offline. So the grouping of the menu is not very obvious. I've tried to get people to join my custom game online before, and they clicked this, which takes them into a menu of custom games. And when there's no place to search multiplayer games. Additionally, this is all quite confusing, which I hope I've illustrated, and I've got a suggestion on how to do it differently. But let's look at this screen. There's one more confusing part here. Even though each of these buttons are 5 different buttons that take you to 5 different places, our brain melds things together a bit. At least my brain does. My brain definitely melts a lot. And it says single player here. So if I were to guess whether this custom game is single player or not, and if I really think about it, I think this custom game is probably multiplayer. Because there's the route to go to single player. So this must be that I am in the multiplayer menu.
Wiecie,
But I don't.
bo z reguły w tych menu gierek macie tak, że macie single player, multiplayer, tam opcje, exit i coś ewentualnie jeszcze credits na przykład, nie? Tutaj od razu wchodzicie z bomby, jesteście z góry na multiplayerze, ale macie guzik tylko i wyłącznie do single playera, bo już w tym multi jesteście. I to jest takie...
Really know. If I think a little bit less and my eyes glaze over, I might be seeing single player and it enters my consciousness, and then I see custom games, so now I'm assuming that this custom game button is actually a single player custom game button. Either way, whether your brain works like mine or not, I think there's a lot to misassociate here, so let's make it a little simpler if possible. Have some kind of visibility to the fact that we're online here. If they implement the big chat or enter chat, then it's going to be more obvious. Have all the things that you can do online here together, such as play multiplayer games. It's called Versus, which I think sounds a bit lame. It should just say play multiplayer, ladder, or play ladder, play multiplayer, whatever, play ranked games, play unranked. I don't really know what it has to be called, but just say like, this is gameplay. This is like the custom games. user-generated content, custom games, you know, your tower defense and everything.
Mogliby napisać
It's allowed
PvP,
to
nie?
explain a little bit more, have a bit more words or whatever, or you can keep it like this, but just make sure custom games online, like in some way. It can either be under an online header, or you can say so on the button. And then local area network and single player could be in the same spot under single player. Collection, I don't really care where you put it. Once you go to single player, this should be like custom game offline, or maybe it should say here you're currently offline, or like you're not playing online. I don't know. I'm sure that people, if anyone at Blizzard is going to pick this up and agrees with me and thinks it's worth the development effort, I'm sure you can develop it much better, the UI and the buttons, than the way that I'm describing it. But I hope at least I've convinced of the need that it could be done a lot better, and it would be good for player retention and player growth. I also think it could be nice if, when we're in this menu, which is the hub of online experience, by the way, that we would be using some of this dead space with something more interesting than a desolate, forsaken flag and a lot of rain. I think this screen could swap out into other images sometimes, so it looks more fresh.
Coś tam rzeczywiście
I think there could
wprowadzić.
be
A taki ekran z pustką, z tą animacją, to jest już od samego początku Warcrafta 3, nie? Tylko że teraz czasy są inne. Więcej rzeczy jest w internecie, bo wszystko jest w internecie, ale mogliby to umieścić jakiś, nie wiem, no, gameplay, tutorial, whatever, nie?
analytics here that
Video.
says, Grats, you won your last ladder game and you had X how much damage on your Blade Master or whatever. If this could be used for anything that feels engaging in any way whatsoever, even if it like by default shows your profile there instead of not showing your profile, maybe it could like show this, just make it a bit smaller and show it on the right, or maybe some component of this.
No, ale dobra,
I'm not
te
even
zmiany to
asking
są
for the
takie
world yet. I'm
pierdoła
not
akurat
asking
ten.
for...
Bo zegar,
By the way, holy crap! Oh my god! What? For years I had 5-1 in stats. Is this working again? I didn't know it got to this point. I have thousands of games on this account. I'm not even asking for the world and asking them to unstuck my 5-1 stats. I was going to say, but I'm at 8-2 now. That's crazy. On W3 Champions, when you make control groups, like grouping 12 units to control group 1, there will be a little 1 over your UI that says there's 12 units inside.
Mi osobiście takie coś nie jest potrzebne, ale no ja na RTS-ach zęby zjadłem, nie? I po prostu już mam tam sobie grupki poprzypisywane zawsze gdzieś tam w każdej grze, ja to jestem w stanie zapamiętać, ale rzeczywiście to, patrząc przez pryzmat nowego gracza, który, nie wiem, zaczyna uczyć się, czy cokolwiek, czy nie jest tak zaznajomiony z RTS-ami, no to rzeczywiście takie coś mogłoby być wprowadzone.
With perhaps the most important unit appearing first as an icon. I think this is a nice thing that many RTS games have, and it could be cool to give a little bit of visibility to players that they've made control groups and how many units there are in it. Of course, this could be a toggle. If you don't want to display this, you could turn it off in the menu. Again, a setting to have it on or off, which does lead to a little bit more setting pressure for players. In that sense, it could be a negative, but I feel like it's generally a big positive if you have that option to show it. Currently, if you want to do hotkeys in Warcraft 3, you go to your settings, options, you go to input, you turn on classic custom grid, you go to custom, then you open a text file on your computer.
Wiecie, że oni przez te 19 lat tego w sumie nie zmienili? To znaczy, przepraszam, zmienili jedną rzecz, że teraz, żeby używać skrótów klawiszowych kuwerty, to musicie jednym kliknięciem w opcjach tylko to zrobić, bo już Warcraft 3 Reforged ma kuwerty wbudowane, tylko trzeba to włączyć w opcjach. Kiedyś, żeby używać kuwertów czy jakichś innych skrótów klawiszowych, musieliście ściągnąć taki plik lub sobie sam taki plik tekstowy przygotować, wrzucić go w odpowiedni folder, wejść w opcję, ustalić w opcję Use Custom Keys i dopiero wtedy wam działało. A żeby zmienić jakiś przypisany guzik, musieliście wejść sobie w ten plik, znaleźć sobie odpowiedni skrót do odpowiedniej komendy, zmienić na guzik, na jaki chcieliście i wtedy to hulało, nie?
Which is custom keys text, which is in your documents folder under the Warcraft folder.
Tak jak tu pokazuję,
and then you open the custom keys txt, and then you start finding the abilities you want to change the hotkey for and changing it manually one by one. I think it'd be lovely if people could just go here, options, hotkeys, or...
I Age of Mythology Retold jest doskonałym przykładem tego, jak robić remake'i. Szczególnie RTS-ów, lub niech będzie nawet głównie RTS-ów, no bo to jest RTS, co nie remake starego Age of Mythology. I tam to wszystko jest. kurde, tam nawet macie opcję, że sobie, bo wiecie, w RTS-ie zaznaczacie sobie jednostki tego samego rodzaju na 2 sposoby. Albo 2 razy klikacie szybko w jedną jednostkę i zaznacza wam wszystkie na ekranie tego rodzaju, albo ewentualnie klikacie, trzymacie lewy kontrol na klawiaturze i klikacie jeden raz lewym myszki na jednostkę i wam zaznacza wam to samo. I obie opcje powinny być w każdym RTS-ie, no bo czasami jak te jednostki idą, łatwiej będzie wam wykonać jeden klik niż dwuklik szybki, nie? Bo możecie po prostu nie trafić. I Warcraft 3 Reforged, który jest remake'iem Warcrafta 3, nie ma opcji zmiany skrótów klawiszowych w nowoczesny sposób. Bo to wystarczyłoby, żeby rzeczywiście dodali po prostu guzik hotkeys, wchodzicie i sobie zmienia się, co tam chcecie. Nie?
Under input, change hotkeys and do it from inside here. And while we're at it, it would also be great if people could change their item inventory hotkeys. Item inventory hotkeys on Classic are numpad 7, numpad 8, numpad 4, numpad 2, etc. In this day and age,
na numerycznej klawiaturze. To sobie wyobraźcie teraz, że macie klawiaturę na przykład taką jak ja. Bo modne i wygodniejsze często gesto są te bez numerycznej po prostu klawiatury z boku, bo zajmują mniej miejsca. Najzwyczajniej są lżejsze, jak gdzieś musicie przenieść czy whatever, nie? I skrótami do ekwipunku waszej postaci są właśnie guziki na numerycznej klawiaturze. Super.
not every keyboard has a numpad anymore. Back in the times, everyone had a numpad. So some people literally cannot use hotkeys for items with Classic. On Grid, the hotkeys for items are TYGHBN, if I'm not mistaken, which is nice. It's right outside the grid that gets used for other hotkeys, and that's where the items are. It's pretty convenient. But what if you want to have it somewhere else? The only way to do it is via third-party software, such as auto hotkeys or war keys. And it'd be nice if people had that functionality to be able to manually choose their item hotkeys as well, and preferably all via the in-game menu.
No.
When you're placing a
lepiej by było zastosować tak, jak jest w Docie 2, na przykład, że sobie używacie Alt-Q, Alt-W, Alt-E na przykład, nie? W zależności od, no, że ekwipunek wasz jest przypisany też na kuwertach, tylko że aktywujecie go po prostu kombinacją Alta dodatkowo.
Tower, a burrow, a guard tower, a cannon tower, an ancient protector. In Warcraft 3, you are not presented with a dotted line of maximum range that tower can fire at.
No.
While this is partially a skill issue, I'm always assuming that active pro gamers are intimately familiar with the range and will rarely if ever get it wrong. While getting that wrong sometimes can lead to interesting spectating and playing experiences, so in order to preserve the spirit of skill for high-level players, perhaps some people will be critical of this change. I believe in lowering the skill floor of the game a bit if it doesn't affect high-level play too much or at all, and I feel like this is one of those. Having a dotted line to show the maximum attack range is something a lot of modern RTS have these days, but Warcraft 3 does not have it. I think it'd be a great addition. One more quality of life change that could be considered is that when a game of Warcraft 3 begins, one of two options. Either automatically put to work all the workers that are spawning at the start of...
W życiu, Boże, co to mówi w ogóle? Ja pierdolę. StarCraft 2 coś takiego prowadził. I teraz ja osobiście uważam, że automatyzowanie takich rzeczy jest złe. Po prostu złe. Powiedziałbym, że niedopuszczalne, ale też nie chcę, żeby to jakoś rygorystycznie zabrzmiało. Nie ułatwiajmy aż tak gry ludziom, bo są pewne, już niech pewne mechaniki, czy pewne standardowe czynności, które należy wykonać, jak się gra zacznie, niech one zostaną, bo jeden kliknie szybciej, a drugi kliknie trochę wolniej. Jeżeli zautomatyzujemy robotników, to potem już zautomatyzujmy w ogóle produkcję jednostek i wszystko w ogóle zautomatyzujmy, a my tylko klikamy, zacznij grę i wyjdź z gry, no.
The game by putting them into the gold mine immediately, or if it's a ghoul, to send it to lumber immediately. Not everyone may like this because it's never been that way, but newer RTS often have this, and it would be a nice quality of life improvement for beginners. I should say that I personally would not like this change, but I'm trying not to only think about myself, but it's not all about what I want, and I think it would help new players a lot, so I'm trying to think broadly here, and I think it'd be a cool quality of life improvement.
Znaczy szczerze, no już powiedzmy sobie szczerze, że nowych graczy takie coś nie przyciągnie. No, nie uwierzę, że że włączają i mówią, ej stary, pograłbym w tego Warcrafta 3, ale jak sobie pomyślę, że gra się uruchamia i ja muszę zaznaczyć wszystkich moich chłopów i wysłać ich do kopalni, to już mi się gotuje mózg. Serio?
Improvement. The alternative to it would be that when you load into a game and the game starts, it would give you a 3-second timer to actually start playing the game. StarCraft 2 has this, but Warcraft 3 does not. This means that you are waiting from the loading screen, which often is very short, but I imagine it could be longer if you play on Reforged graphics or playing on a literal potato like a Raspberry Pi or whatever. And in that moment, it'd be nice if there was a 3-second countdown timer so that you can get mentally prepared for the game actually beginning. This would also level the playing field for everyone on different hardware to have the same delay on starting their workers, which is purely based on your own reaction speed and not based on how quickly you load into the game, which may create 1, 2, or 3-second discrepancies between different players. I found this one out only a couple of years ago. Apparently, Warcraft 3 has a hotkey for idle workers. The way I found this out is because I was playing Age of Empires 4 and I heavily relied on the usage of that hotkey. I bemoaned how Warcraft 3 doesn't have one like that, and people told me, yes it does.
Czyli jednak są elementy, które Grubby do dzisiaj nie wiedział, a ja wiedziałem. Nie no, tylda, to na Warcraftie 3 to jakby sobie zaimplementowałem do potem, dzięki Warcraftowi do innych gier, do Retolda na przykład teraz, żeby, to jest, wiecie, no już też pamięć mieściała sobie się wyrobiła, ale to jest taki guzik nieużywalny, tylda to jest ten guziczek obok jedynki na, wiecie, na tutaj numerycznej klawiaturze, w sensie nie na numery sztywnej, tylko obok cyferek, które się z reguły nie używają do niczego. No w CS-ie otwieracie sobie po prostu konsolę, żeby wpisać jakąś komendę. No nie, w RTS-ach to jest nieużywalne i dlatego to jest zajebisty guzik, żeby zaznaczać workerów, którzy nic nie robią.
F8 or the tilde hotkey allows you to cycle through idle workers. There are a couple of problems with the way it's implemented in Warcraft 3 though. I say problems, it's relatively small, but it could be better. If I have 5 idle workers, pressing the idle worker hotkey repeatedly allows me to cycle between one and the next.
Okay.
If I hold shift and I press tilde multiple times, then I will select all of them. But as you notice, it just deselected one because I had already started my round
O tym akurat
and it
nie
was now
wiedziałem, że muszę
reselecting
zaznaczyć,
one
tylko nawet nie
that I
próbowałem shiftem
already had
zaznaczać.
selected, which means it's unselecting them. So it is now it's deselecting everything, and I'm still holding shift, and now finally it's going to select all 5 of them again. So because it has like a certain order of going to the idle ones, if I start with the wrong one, then it will start adding and then remove one again,
A to
and then I can
faktycznie,
actually
no,
never get 5.
zakładając w ogóle, że taka sytuacja będzie miała miejsce, no bo jak macie to zaznaczenia, nie wiem, wiecie, że ileś tam robotników nic nie robi i oni są na ekranie pokazani w tym samym momencie, no to raczej zaznaczacie tam, nie wiem, po kolei, w sensie wszystkich, tutaj 2, tu 3, tutaj łapiecie, nie zaznaczacie jednym skrótem czy z shiftem tego. Bo tak, no to sama tylda działa bardzo spoko, bo pokazuje z reguły jest 1 czy 2 peony, które nic nie robią, w sensie workerzy, nie?
So I have to start with shifting via the tilde hotkey. If this is a little confusing, let me put it more simply. If I want to select all my idle worker hotkeys, it would be nice if I could do Control plus tilde. This works in Age of Empires 4, but not in Warcraft 3. What works in Warcraft 3 is just tilde,
Okay.
tilde, shift, tilde, shift, tilde, shift, tilde, shift, tilde. Like this, I'll have all 5. But of course, if I have all peons on the screen and I double click it, it selects all. If I hold control and I left click a peon, it also selects all. So it also makes sense that control tilde would select all. But this unfortunately doesn't work. And it'd be nice if it could. If it's an easy change, it'd be a great improvement. It would help me to coach and teach new players as I bring them into Warcraft 3 as well. Additionally, in Age of Empires 4, I can't believe I'm using Age of Empires 4 as an example, by the way. I helped them with so many missing UI.
Ulepszyli podobno bardzo Age of Empires 4. A jak nie pasuje to Retolda, możesz jak najbardziej, bo Retold robi wszystko perfekcyjnie, jeżeli chodzi o takie rzeczy właśnie skrótowe.
Issues and problems and bugs and so on, they got a lot better, which is why now I use them as an example, but they had many of their own problems because of videos like this actually. So I'm going to continue using them as an example. In Age of Empires 4, you can choose when you select one of these workers or one of these units in this method, whether you want the camera to focus on it or not. So for instance, you could have monks that pick up relics in Age of Empires 4,
Okay.
and I actually have those on the same hotkey, which is tilde. You can choose whether when you click it, it actually focuses the camera on it. You see, in Warcraft 3, it's forced. I might want to select an idle worker with the hotkey when I'm busy here doing a fight.
No, rozumiem.
I might be fighting.
Chodzi o to, tak, no to prawda. Mogłoby tak być, że daje wybór. W sensie ja już się tak przyzwyczaiłem, że wiem, że jak kliknę tyldę, to mi od razu przeniesie na tego robotnika, który aktualnie nic nie robi. I faktycznie czasami to sprawia takie coś, że nie wiem, jesteście w peworze walki albo coś chcecie szybko wybudować, klikacie to i was przenosi, ale z drugiej strony czasami, nie wiem, peon skończy coś budować i chcecie coś postawić w tym miejscu, gdzie on to budował. I wiecie, że zaraz ten wasz robotnik pojawi się jako robotnik, który nic nie robi i wtedy klikacie raz tyldę i wam przynosi z kamerą, bo wiecie, że tak się wydarzy. No to jest takie
this
już...
camp right now, but I noticed that one of my workers has become idle. Perhaps I want to hit the idle hotkey worker button and bring it here to build a farm here. But it will force my camera back to home where the worker is. Then I need to double tap my hero again to go back to the creeping. It'd be nice if the forced camera part was uncoupled from the fact of selecting idle workers. This could be a setting in the input options. The next part is actually something that you have to teach every single Warcraft 3 player that you onboard. It's got to do with formations. Formations is on by default when you install a copy of Warcraft 3. Formations is a really good idea by Blizzard that allows you to walk around the map with units in a fixed formation where every unit matches their movement speed to the slowest unit in the group.
No tak, no i ta opcja formacji jest dobra, jak sobie gramy kampanię i chcemy sobie pozwiedzać widoczki i gdzieś jakiś roleplay odegrać. Bo jeżeli chcemy sobie rozegrać po prostu meczyk z kimś na multiplayerze, czy nawet z komputerem i tak dalej, to jest do pizdy opcja, która powinna być usunięta. Totalnie, w sensie wystarczy, że raz klikniemy sobie na tą ikonkę tutaj na dole, którą on pokazał i jeden raz klikniemy, to jest wyłączona, drugi raz to jest włączona i tak dalej, nie?
This can be quite helpful. Very fast units, like the Raider and the Bat Rider, may be outpacing the rest of the army as they're going towards an opponent, and then very slow units, like Demolishers, will be trailing behind far. By using formation hotkey, the Demolisher is standing still and waiting until everyone is in the predetermined formation, and then when you start moving, everyone keeps the Demolisher's movement speed. This means that when we arrive at an opponent's base, it's all together. Basically, this is a very good idea, but it has a lot of very obvious downsides, which is why I always teach people to turn it off. These downsides include things such as unresponsive behavior. If I right-click this army to go below, the Demolisher, who wants to be behind in the formation, realizes that he wants to be at the back of the formation again, and the best way to do that is by standing still.
Excellent choice.
Once everyone has caught up and went past him, the Demolisher starts moving again.
Yes.
But during the time that the rest of them is trying to catch up, the Demolisher is standing still. Imagine now, for instance, that a Frostworm army is creeping up from above me. There's a Frostworm army coming in, and I want to run away. And I panic and I take my whole army and I say, go back to base. And the Demolisher is like, nah man, I'm at the back of the formation, I'm just gonna stay here. This is a very large problem. Sometimes this also affects your heroes. You might be doing a spam click on all of your units where you are about to get Coil Nova'd on your Blade Master. You want to get away. All of your army matters, but no one matters more than your blade. So you tell your whole army to go home, but the blade is really just very slow unnecessarily, and he gets Coil Nova'd and killed. The only way to prevent him from dying in this way is to select him individually and make sure he starts moving at full movement speed again. So I'd like to see formations as a useful thing in the campaign, but extremely counterproductive.
Albo nie grać z formacjami i przyzwyczaić się po prostu, że każda jednostka porusza się z własną szybkością. I tyle.
Productive in multiplayer play, to the degree that for all of its upsides, the downsides are so much larger that I would much rather like to see this turned off by default, because it's literally just, you can pretty much bet on it. Anytime you look at a Bronze League player, a new player, they're gonna have this on, they're not gonna know they should turn it off, that their army becomes weirdly unresponsive they're not going to understand why sometimes the Farseer is standing still because he's meant to be at the back of the formation. They're going to feel like the game is less responsive than what it really is.
No
So this
faktycznie
should be off
jest
by
takie
default when you
wrażenie, że
install
jest
the
ta
game for the
formacja
first
włączona,
time.
że coś jest nie tak,
Speaking
jeśli
about
grasz nie chodzi.
onboarding new players, my final tip and my final quality of life improvement I would like to suggest for Blizzard to help bring more players in and to help keep more players in is to use this dead space here to merge it with content creator content, such as build order guides, tier list videos, and gameplay videos, so that
A to
people
tak
can
w sumie
learn
mówiłem,
how to play
nie?
Warcraft 3
Jak
from
wspomniał
some
o
of the
tym,
content
że tam jest
creators
dużo
that have been keeping the
niewykorzystanego
game
miejsca,
alive.
że mogliby
Good
jakieś filmiki
channels
dać,
for this would
czy
be
jakieś
candidates
newsy,
such
tylko
as
newsy z czego? No musiałyby być jakieś turnieje organizowane, które w sumie są, ale nie przez Blizzarda.
I'm sure there's more, but these are some of the main channels that I can think of right now. Additionally, 2 other great YouTube channels that could be integrated here as well in order to make the game of Warcraft 3 and the esports and the community of Warcraft 3 feel more alive. My favorite 2 channels are Back to Warcraft and Warcraft 3 Art. They're both YouTube channels that show high-level games of Warcraft 3, and it's a great place to get some inspiration.
Fajny materiał. Mam nadzieję, że Blizzard posłucha. Jeżeli chodzi o Back to Warcraft, to są goście, którzy w sumie dzięki nim nadal turnieje są rozgrywane. W sensie nadal jest jakby zainteresowanie w Europie turniejami, gdzieś tam tych profesjonalnych graczy, czy tam półprofesjonalnych jest i to community sobie żyje. Ja sam byłem w szoku, jak ich znalazłem te 6 chyba lat temu nawet, jeżeli mnie pamięć nie myli. Warcraft 3 świetna gierka i fajnie, że Grubby tutaj wpadł na takie pomysły. Czy Blizzard posłucha? Znając ich, najprawdopodobniej nie. Dzięki za oglądanie, zostawcie lajka, jeżeli nie subskrybujecie, no to subika. Trzymajcie się i do następnego. Cześć!